Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. Glad you could join me here today, as always. Hope it's a wonderful day in your world wherever you are today. It's bright and sunny here today, and we are going to continue with The Power is Within, available on Amazon. Pick up your copy today. We are on Chapter 8, Power in Release. So we will continue with this. Okay, here we go. Smash that like button and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. We have a video coming out every day. I lived in South America. We are on page, stop for a minute here. We are on location 596 in the ebook. Chapter 8, and it begins with, I lived in South America for many years. Actually, Latin America. I've been to South America many times and still travel back and forth between here and there, so I fly often. One particular flight illustrates just how powerful the power within us is. I was coming back from South America, heading toward a connecting flight in Atlanta before returning home to St. Louis. As you all know, when traveling, things rarely work out exactly how they're planned, at least how we plan them. That spring, evening storms had rolled into Atlanta. The pilot came over the speaker and announced that we would need to circle for a bit until the storm calmed down, and then we would land. Yeah, so they said. No problem, I thought. I have plenty of time between flights. I'll just eat dinner in Atlanta and be home by bedtime. Beautiful and awe-inspiring as they were, there was no need to flirt with the towering, lightning-soaked clouds I saw from my window seat. After circling for about 30 minutes, the pilot came on again. The storm had grown or shifted, and we weren't going to land in Atlanta. We would have to go back to Savannah. Well, there goes my connection. I took a deep breath, disappointed, but what could I do? Just accept it. I told myself, and I focused on readjusting my expectations. No sooner had I finished salvaging my mindset than the pilot came over the speaker once again. It was as if the universe was watching, throwing a compilation at me, waiting for me to react, then pouncing again once I had. Savannah wasn't far enough south. We would have to go all the way back to Jacksonville, Florida. What a bummer. Okay, come on, I thought. This is ridiculous. I need to go northwest, not southeast. This time it took more than a few deep breaths and some close-eyed mindfulness practice to right my emotional ship. But in the end, I had kept myself from falling as resolutely apart as I was witnessing from most of the passengers within earshot. I reminded myself that there was a bigger plan here and I was just along for the ride. Literally, I surrendered. We landed in Jacksonville around midnight, just in time to carve out a place in the corner somewhere and attempt to sleep. Unfortunately, this wasn't my first time camping in an airport. Some of you know how this goes. Throw on some extra clothes because you have no blanket and airports are kept god-awful cold. Then attempt to catch a few winks before your way too early adjusted flight. Yep, that's pretty much what it was. I might have cobbled together a couple hours of restless sleep before I woke at about 5 the next morning. Groggy, I started making my way to the other end of the airport. That's another thing. Connecting flights, especially when something has already gone wrong, will always be at the very opposite end of the airport from the gate you arrived at. On the bright side, it gave me a chance to stretch my legs and warm up before I would get to sit back down in a tiny airplane seat for several more hours. As I neared my connecting gate, I finally saw the first open coffee shop. I stopped and grabbed a coffee and the most nutritious breakfast they had available, 2 donuts, then sat and pulled out my Kindle reader. As I had just begun reading a section about the power people have flowing through them to heal others, I had never considered such a thing. I knew about miraculous healings, of course, but had always considered that an ability of a person to heal their own self through the creative power of their own belief. It made sense, though. Why should there be any limit on the creative power of belief? If a person can self-heal, why couldn't they heal someone else? Wouldn't you know, like many ideas we find ourselves exposed to, no sooner did I finish the section than I was given a chance to apply it. A pair of people had sat down at a table near me while I was reading and enjoying my breakfast of caffeine and sugar. They were close in age, both likely in their 20s or 30s. Nothing was remarkable about them, and I likely wouldn't even remember the pair had I left the coffee shop only a few minutes earlier. But the bigger plan unfolding around me called for something else. As I finished my coffee and stood to leave, the man began shaking suddenly. His friend flew out of her chair and began screaming for help, her words saturated with panic. I've been in many situations like this before, requiring split-second decisions with no clear explanation of outcome or expectation of outcome. Due to the events, adventures, and misadventures of my life, staying calm under pressure feels natural. I have not, however, been in a position to fill in as an untrained paramedic. Most situations I've been in had to do with reacting to an attack from a mugger or staying calm during a car crash. My reaction here was no different. As though on autopilot, I sprang into action. I rushed to the man's side, who appeared to be having a seizure, and grabbed him before he could fall sideways from the chair and onto the hard floor. What I did next is what I call the God part of me, the big I. I know that sounds highly egotistical. It's not. It's a recognition of the power that lies within all of us. Many never experience it because they shut it down. They don't believe in it, so they play it safe and avoid situations that call for action in a way that is greater than their current belief dictates as possible. Where others hold it in, I simply allowed it out because I didn't think. I just did. I didn't think. Sometimes that's good, and sometimes it seems to cause trouble, but it always works out well in the end. I allowed my inner guidance system to completely take over. I wrapped my arms protectively around the man and began whispering comfortingly into his ear. My forehead pressed against the side of his. He was still sitting in his bar-height chair, shaking, and I was standing next to him like a father would a child. I assured him he would be okay, that I knew he was afraid, and I understood how hard that was. Oh, shoot. Let me say that I skipped a page, understood fear, but that I wouldn't let him come to any harm. These weren't words I had ever spoken before. They came to me because I didn't block them with my own disbelief. I could feel the fear radiating from this man, even through his violent shaking. But after no more than 30 seconds of reassurance, his tense muscles relaxed, and the shaking and trembling stopped. By then, someone had called the paramedics, but they wouldn't be there for about 20 minutes. I released the man and stood next to him with one hand on his shoulder while I turned my attention to the woman he was with. It was his sister. They were returning from the U.S., heading back to the Virgin Islands. Their home had been destroyed 2 years earlier by a hurricane, and this was their first time back since her brother was severely autistic. The uncertainty of their situation is what had triggered the seizure, though I learned it had been a particularly bad one. As we were waiting for the paramedics, he slipped back into a seizure and was making broken gestures to his sister with his hands. She looked at me in even greater shock than before and said, "He wants you to hold him again." Then she started crying. I wrapped my arms around the man once more, and again he returned to a state of relative calm. I continued to hold him, this time until the paramedics arrived. Altogether, I had been with the brother and sister for about a half an hour before help came. Before I left, she told me this was the first time her brother had let someone other than her touch him since they had left the Virgin Islands. Usually such a contact would send him into a type of convulsions he had just suffered rather than relieving them. I have no medical training, I am not a therapist, and I don't have any experience interacting with people with autism or those that are prone to seizures. I was just a stranger in the airport, one that I wasn't even supposed to be in. Had we landed in Atlanta and made my original connecting flight, I would have been home 10 hours earlier and never would have met these siblings. While he was seizing that morning, I would have been sipping my coffee on my front porch. It took 2 delayed landings and a flight the next day and a chance encounter before most people are up in the morning to bring us together. Except that it wasn't chance at all. It was entirely and intricately planned, not by me, of course. I am just a vessel open to guidance, and because I'm open to guidance, guidance comes. So does power. Truly they are the same, the timing and the power. They are the unseen hand that guides and gives and guides. This hand gives exactly what you believe is possible and guides you to it. I believed I was along for the ride on a journey bigger than me, that whatever happened, I would be up to it, and I was. I'm going to stop there, and I want to comment on that. That was a strange situation because I don't really know why I got up to help that man. I didn't plan it. I didn't think. I just did. And how in the heck did I end up there? Think about that. I would have been home. 2 delays took me back there where I was right there at the right time. And in the book, it didn't say this, but I had stopped at that restaurant before and got my coffee and donuts, and I actually walked down to where I was going to get my connecting flight. And I was walking down that way, and it was cold, and I had plenty of time, and I thought, man, I'm going to go back to the restaurant and sit there and wait a little bit longer. So I had left the restaurant, and they weren't there when I left the first time, but I came back and they were there. So once again, all these things were played out just so I could be there in the right place at the right time to help that boy and to help myself. Because by helping him, it helped me. It helped me realize that there is a bigger plan, that things happen that we can't see the big picture. And the big picture has usually got a pretty good plan in it if we cooperate with it. Now, I don't always want to cooperate with it. Of course, had I had my way, I would have been back in St. Louis. I wouldn't have missed my flights. I wouldn't have had the storm delay, etc., etc. But there was a bigger plan there to unfold, which if I had not have had that bigger plan, I wouldn't be able to tell you this story today. And I wouldn't have been able to share that wonderful experience of helping that young man. And looking back, I wouldn't have missed it for the world. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for joining me. I hope this has been of value to you. Share with a friend. Welcome to my new subscribers, and I'm going to go, and I'll see you tomorrow.